Hello there, I'm Tom, and this is my Blue Review of Man of Steel. Henry Cavill, Russell Crowe, Amy Adams, Michael Shannon, Diane Lane, and Kevin Costner star in Man of Steel, which is one of those movies where, as a Superman fan, I absolutely hate, but as a film, it's still decent enough to recommend to most. It still isn't perfect either way you put it, but was a good attempt by 300 director Zack Snyder to update the original superhero to the 21st century. Although not even a decade prior, Bryan Singer tried to reinvigorate the Superman franchise with Superman Returns, Warner Brothers still decided to reboot the franchise, and although not the huge success WB wanted, Superman Returns was still a success. Just the same, WB and DC listened to the fans in a way, I guess, and we got Man of Steel, which is basically an anti-Superman Returns and not really for the best. The story is fairly simple enough, and it's one of the most well-known origins in the world. An alien is sent here from a dying planet and raised on a Kansas farm where he grows to become a great hero, and on the cusp of learning who he is and what he could be, he is confronted by his father's killer and the last few known remnants of his own species. Unfortunately, the filmmakers believe that making Superman dark and brooding meant making the character more serious or cool, when all it does is make him more like Batman. That is my biggest complaint with the film overall, is that Christopher Nolan, having such great success with his Dark Knight trilogy, WB decided to have him kind of guide the transition from his films into this film universe, along with co-writer throughout the trilogy David Goyer, with very mixed results compared to the Marvel universe, who, no matter how you want to look at it, they are trying to emulate by doing so. The actors are fine, the story was okay, the movie itself just shares too much with the pacing and editing style of Batman Begins. That really, after a while, you really wish you were watching a Batman movie instead. The climax is so over the top and mind-numbingly bad that the last quarter of the movie is literally a fistfight that nearly takes out Metropolis. Granted, these things are addressed in the next film, but it gets so bad you're taken out of the movie and it gets overbearing or boring after a few minutes, suffering from the same issues that Star Wars Episode 3 did. By the time we get to the end, most of the emotion is gone, leaving the climax unclimactic. At the same time, I don't feel like David Goyer and Zack Snyder really understood the character of Superman in a lot of ways. And I don't have any issues with the film's finale per se in what happens, but too much is too much. It's loud and obnoxious and too damn long. This is not a film for younger kids. They will not enjoy it. I can say firsthand that any kid younger than 10 is probably questionable. All in all, though, Man of Steel isn't a complete loss or failure, and it's not as polarizing as the films that came after it. Unfortunately, it was a sign of things to come more so than hopeful or awe-inspiring. The film is just really dark, depressing, and an exercise in too many special effects and violence. The film passes with a 6 out of 10. The Blu-ray isn't as much of a disappointment as the film itself. There is an enhanced commentary with Snyder and a handful of other behind-the-scenes features. Really, your interest relies solely on if you like the film or not. So unfortunately, it was rough to get through a lot of these features, but for some of you, there's more than enough for you to gorge on. Presentation is superb, and though dreary looking and dark in a lot of places and washed out by whites and others, this is obviously the aesthetic chosen for the film, so it's not the Blu-ray's fault. The 3D presentation is well done and great for this type of movie, the flying scenes of course being the standout, until we get too much of it in the last portion of the film, of course. The sound is a rich DTS master and is exactly as you would expect, is loud and in your face most of the time. The Blu-ray itself earns a 9 out of 10 stars.